Who is it?
Hooyo ma joogtaa?
Hooyo Mataalo. She went shopping.
Hooyo markay timaado haba xabiibaa kuu timid ku dheh.
Okay, habo.
Yo, wagwan. Assalamu alaikum. Damantina kuso dawada and welcome to Hooyo Mataalo Podcast. I'm Lee, short for Liban.
I'm Sam, short for Samatar.
And yeah, we're back, baby. Back for another episode 5.
Now we're back for episode 5. Yeah, and we're back and with a new topic today. With a special guest we have today. We've got our dear friend Udu today.
I don't know about special guest.
No, definitely. You are a
Guest
special. I'd say definitely special guest because the reason for having you today, and we'll have a good introduction in terms of what your background and everything is, but a good introduction is how we actually met, I'd say.
Yeah, good start there.
There's a good start there. Yeah, definitely. We done a postgrad together, and that's how we met and everything else. And we've had.
That was a while ago now. It's about 4 years.
About 4 years ago. You know what? 4 years ago. Yeah, it's about 4 years ago. I'd say now. And I previously mentioned that in one of the pods that I went to number 10 one time, and we was chairing a meeting at that time. And funny enough, it was actually Woody herself. We chaired the meeting together.
I was a hot mess, equal to Sam. I don't know what I was doing. I think if you put me in that situation now, I'd do exactly the same thing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cause
public speaking, it's just not for me. It doesn't matter.
yeah, because it was public speak, but at the same time it was on the G8 table, right? So we had a little audience there too at the same time. So we had it all figured out and whatnot. But at the same time, funny enough, it was that I think I took lead at one point, and then when I tried to take the lead, I choked, and then I must have been tapping you, and then you choked too, and we're both looking at each other. I'm like, what are we gonna do now, kind of thing.
And we thought we were so cute, meeting up early.
Yeah, literally.
Coming up with a whole speech.
Yeah.
And it went all out the window.
It went south, to be fair, and then it didn't work. It didn't work out too well and everything.
No, it was a hot mess.
Yeah.
Although actually, I think it was just the nerves at the beginning, and then I think as we kind of got into it, it did become a bit more comfortable.
Definitely, I think as time went on and everything else, we went into our stride and everything else, and I think it was great.
We ended well.
Yeah, it was a good end. I think it was a good end. Yeah. So we got you today. We've got a particular topic that we're hopefully getting into today, which is about the mental health. And when we talk about the mental health, we particularly want to look into our own community and what that really means. And we've got Udik here that, has got a better explanation, I'd say, about when it comes to the topic of mental health. So Udik, would you like to basically talk about what your background really is?
So I started, I guess, with my undergrad. So I did psychology and counselling. It's going back a long time ago now. But at the time, I think I was just interested in knowing not how brains work so much, but what influences people, why people are the way that they are. I had quite a bit of exposure as well growing up to like an actual family member of mine that had serious mental health problems. So I always was exposed to it. I obviously didn't know what it was, but I think that was probably what intrigued me, like in terms of my driving force as to why I decided to study more about that. And just generally, I like knowing how things work, whether it's like how society functions or how people do present themselves. It's always like I want to know the behind.
Yeah.
I want to know what's going on, what kind of brought them to that. So that was, I think, the reason I wanted to learn about it. But this is at the time, I obviously didn't take it very seriously. And then what happened, I actually went into a mental health hospital for the first time after I graduated. And I honestly thought, going into that, I thought, I'm going to change the world.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so embarrassing. No, but I really did think, like, going into it, I was so naive. I thought, I'm going to go into this hospital and I'm just going to make such a change here. And I'm going to have such a huge impact on these people.
Yeah.
I'll tell you actually might not be funny to you guys, but I remember the very first day I was there at this forensic. So forensic meaning these people have been incarcerated at one point.
Yeah.
And then when they're too unwell, they basically do the rest of their sentence in a mental health hospital. So a lot of these people, these guys, have been there for 20 plus years. And they've been in this rehabilitation for so long. So they're basically institutionalized completely. And I went in there, fresh graduate, not knowing what the hell I was getting myself into. And I remember I went up to one of the patients and I asked them, like, what do you want? And I was thinking, you know, what is it you want? What are you passionate about? And he was like, I want them to open those doors up and just let us out. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't expect that, if you know what I mean. I don't know what I expected, to be honest, but I realized very quickly that I was basically up against an entire system, basically. Yeah. So, I learned a lot, and I realized at some point that I didn't want to work in mental health. And then I decided to do the course that we met. Yeah. Because I wanted to be a change maker and work in like community and do like third sector stuff. And then after some time I realized, ironically, once I did the course, I realized I didn't actually want to do that.
Ironically enough.
Yeah,
I
after it finished, I was like, nah, I don't want to do community work.
I did remember you mentioning, of course, the whole point of it was probably going to the third sector itself.
Yeah.
And maybe setting up your own, maybe small organization that deals with these kind of things.
Yeah.
And, at the forefront, you want to be there to help our community, especially because, we've seen the trouble past, that probably previous traumas that they've had.
Yes.
So the whole point of it, I remember when you was actually on the course. To be fair, I was just there maybe a bit for vibes. Probably I was just there. I was just there.
You was there for vibes?
Yeah, like, I wouldn't say fully for vibes, but it's more like, okay, where can I go from here? Like, where is this gonna take me to? Whereas when I looked at everyone else, everyone had a set plan. Okay, I want to open up this. I want to go into this.
Yeah.
I'm already doing something along those lines. Whereas with me, I'm just there. I'm like, whoa, everyone's got a plan. Everyone wants to do this. I'm just there, whatnot. But the good thing that came out of it was that talked about the previous episode actually was that I don't know if you remember, a lecturer actually sent me out to do some mentoring at one point.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he pulled me aside and said, I think you should do some mentoring for me at this school.
He really liked you. I think I remember that he was like, I want Sam to do it.
Yeah. It's funny because even when we used to walk down at lunch at times, it's always me and him walking.
Yeah.
And then I saw the rest of you lot saying, so what did you lot speak about today? Like, why are you lot always like walking together and whatnot?
Together.
Yeah. But we used to have some interesting conversations actually. But at the same time, I felt like it was more of a guidance I was getting.
Yes.
Whereas the reason I think probably I needed more at that point, like I said, at first maybe it's just for vibes. But at the long run, I kind of got into that thing of I want to open up my own thing too. I want to have my own, be working for my community.
Definitely.
What can I do for them itself? Do you know what I mean? It's more gives than takes at this point. Yeah. And I think that's what it was for at that time.
I honestly think we all went into that not having a clue what we were going into. I think.
No. I don't think we did, but at the same time, I felt like... but I think the clarity came at the end, to be fair.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like the clarity we gained from it was at the end when we had our one-to-ones. Yes. It's like the ending kind of thing. And everyone had their roadmap already set.
Ivan doesn't know what on earth we're talking about.
Yeah, so basically, the best way, and probably a lot of people think, well, what these lot rambling on about. But it's more to do with, we were just, giving a bit of a background to what the course kind of was for, right? So it was actually... really, really beneficial in that sense. Do you know what I mean? And we really gained a lot from it. But at the same time, it's more about what can you do for your community. Yes. And I think that's what a lot of us needed at that time. It's more about being, the best way to be like community champion of some sorts.
Yeah. Definitely, you know what I mean? Definitely.
Like being a pillar for your community and what can you give in that sense.
How to be influential.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it changed a lot of us. Well, especially me, how I first came and then how I was at the end.
Definitely.
The big change. I think a lot.
I think I was rattled by that experience in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. I think a lot of us changed. Don't get me wrong.
In a positive way.
A lot of us changed in that sense.
Yeah, but ironically, it was once I did the community leadership and law course, I realized I don't want anything to do with working in the community. Not in a sense, not in the third sector organization sense, anyway. But that course was completely like transformational in terms of taught me a lot that I didn't expect, you know, and I had a lot of experiences again I didn't expect to experience.
Yeah, I'd say expect to experience, but at the same time, I think that course was more beneficial in the sense of that it modeled us in a certain way.
It was a more personal development course.
It's more of a personal development
anything.
course. Yeah, definitely. It allowed us to really do a deep dive, I'd say, into ourselves and really understand who we are and everything else.
Yes.
And it's like coming in, let's say at the beginning, you're really quiet, you don't say much. But at the end, it's like...
You were always quiet, Sam.
Yeah, I was quiet. Everyone else, I took a step back more time. You're
an observer.
Yeah, that's the best way to call it.
100%.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, I think. And
so what did you end up doing after that course?
So after that, what did I do? I traveled for a bit. I went back home to Somaliland. I then did some other random kind of, I was a mental health advocate, basically. Do you guys want me to go into that?
Yeah, definitely.
It's
I think the unique,
it probably sounds, it's
no,
quite boring.
definitely the unique experience that you've had that we've kind of touched upon outside of this anyways.
So that was one of the roles that I did. Basically, I was a independent mental health advocate, which basically means that you advocate for people that are sectioned under the Mental Health Act. So you are going to hospitals and basically making sure that you're that person that the patients are essentially getting their rights and their rights are being protected, and that they know what their rights are, they know what their options are, they're being treated fairly. So you need to know a lot about mental health law, safeguarding, etc., etc. So you're there as an independent person. You're like liaising with the people, and you're working with the hospital. So you're that middle person, and you advocate for the patient, basically. So I was doing that for a while, and that basically allowed me to go work in every kind of setting imaginable. Every type of mental health problem that you could think of. I was probably set up in a ward there at some point, so I got to see like people that are dealing with all various types of complex mental health traumas and illnesses and diagnoses. So it was even like economically as well. So people that were obviously very wealthy, that were in very, very nice hospitals bordering on like hotels actually. Funnily enough, in those hospitals they didn't like to call the wards because it's too hospital-like. They would want you to call it floors.
Really? Floors?
Just so they don't feel like they're in a hospital.
Definitely,
yeah. So so I worked as a mental health advocate for a while, and that gave me a lot of kind of experience and thing around mental health law. And then after all that, I kind of realized I wanted to go back to what my original thing was, which was therapy. I'm inshallah due to finish. I have finished actually. I have finished it. I'm waiting for my grades for that. So
no, inshallah. No,
if you don't hear anything about that means you know what's happened, innit?
No, definitely.
I'm still training.
No, definitely.
No, I'm joking.
I think you've had a unique experience by going back home. You went to
twice. Yeah,
you was fortunate enough to go to Gabile.
Yeah,
and you was able to go to a mental health institution. Yeah.
So I think, I went to back in 2017, the first time I went. There's not much to do there. There's only so many restaurants you can go to, right?
Yeah.
And I think after a while I grew a bit impatient. I was kind of like, I want to do something. Like I want to see the mental health hospitals. And then, uncle of mine took me there and just waited for me outside and was like, I'll wait for you here. Yeah. And I was like, are you serious? So I went ahead and I didn't know why I went there. I just kind of wanted to check it out, see, that's, I guess I am passionate about. And I want to see the conditions and how it kind of functions there. And then, I went there and I wasn't surprised because I did expect it. It's a developing country at the end of the day. Mental health problems, usually in the countries that are developing, its conditions are quite poor and people's health is often quite severe. But it was equally still, even though I expected it, I still was very, very shocked to see the conditions of that hospital. It was.
What was it like when you first got there? and then, you know, I'm probably thinking there's probably 2 people that work there, or, you know, I think you mentioned beforehand that it's not backed by the government or anything. This is totally independent by, you know, you got several funders that pull their money together and open up this institution.
Yeah. So like a bit of a disclaimer, obviously, like the people that were working there were, I like, of course, everyone that's working there is doing it for sometimes with not getting any income from it at all. So there was 1 doctor there and 1 nurse, and the other ones were volunteers. So they were usually out of day, like university, studying like health and social, anything really, but they would just come here for kind of experience, and they were the ones that were working basically, but no kind of real expertise. Do you know what I mean? Like a mental health nurse, for example, that knows how to administer medication, like all these things, all these roles that you see in mental health hospitals. There's about 15 things that spaces you can occupy in those institutions. But when I was in Hargeisa, I was like, I was so shocked to see that there's basically nothing. There's like 1 doctor and 1 nurse, and they run the whole show.
My experience when I went, my first ever time seeing it, when I went in 2003, I must have went, I think I was just on the outskirts, I think, and there was a little hut there. Now I went there and I saw on this hut, right, you saw a guy chained there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, to a chain. And I was thinking, I was quite young at that time, so I saw this guy chained, and obviously I'm thinking at this point, you know, it's so surreal to me at this point because I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, what's the whole reasoning behind this? A guy that's chained, did he, you know, is this like a mini cell, or what's going on? Did he do something, or is he like, is he able to harm the community? So I was just trying to stay well clear of it. But as time went on, you tend to see loads of those pictures around of people, you know, chained up and everything, and this is due to a lot of them having something to do with, you know, mental health or it's really quite severe as well. Like the conditions that I saw in the mental health hospitals were really like sanitary. Like there's 6 people to a room, like, which obviously is just not good for anybody. It does more harm than it does good. So that was that. And then obviously I went as well, like going around, and we were delivering rations to really like remote areas. And this is, you know, those houses, there's little huts. There's little huts in that. Yeah. So we went to a few of them, and honestly, so many of them had mental health problems, and they were all tied up. And the reason that is because basically with Bahsani, and they'll run away. And these people that are chaining them or tying them up, they're usually the ones that are looking after them, the ones that are looking after the home, the ones that are going, you know, expect to work. So they go and work, and then, you know, you can't leave them behind. So it's almost like there's no option. There's no option, but it becomes really problematic, because if that's a son, let's say, right, and I've seen this, and the mother, let's say, is a single mother, right, and she might have 5 kids. Now, if she's the breadwinner at this point, right, and she's the breadwinner at this point, she's got no choice but to tie him up at that point, because she's unable to look after him at the same time and then go and get the money at the same time, if that makes sense. Yeah, and obviously the understanding of mental health in general is very, you know, don't really know even the basics. So I guess in terms of how you would manage that as well, they just don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what it is. You know, a lot of them have ideas about, you know, chin and these kind of things. They have their own perceptions of what the illness is, or what's triggered it, or what's caused it. So then they therefore do not know how to manage it, what to do. All they know is to tie them up, because they know that if they let them loose, that they will just walk out and wander out into the street. And so that's, unfortunately, I guess, but at the same time, this is the effects of, you know, the civil war itself. A lot of people are untreated and everything, I'd say. Yeah. And you do, when you do go back home, you tend to see a lot of people just, you know, walking around the city. Yeah, man. And like you said, there's a lot of people in suits that you think they're just casual people, but really and truly, they're not. No, do you know what I mean? I really don't think. Obviously, people probably, you know, disagree. Honestly, I can't generalize and say everyone's, you know, not well there. But
it appears to me that a lot of the people kind of self-medicate in order for them to deal with whatever it is they're dealing with. And you have to understand, this is a country that has very recently come out of war, right? So these are people that, when they had experienced that at a very young age, they're now full-grown adults that have children. That then is passed on to their children, because there is such thing as a gene that is actually a trauma gene that you can inherit, that a child can inherit, or they're more susceptible to develop serious mental health illnesses. So these things, if they don't go checked, you know, if the illness isn't, you know, dealt with, then that's going to get passed on. Yeah. So that's what you see. That's why you see so many people that are unwell, and the way that they deal with it is unfortunately through just consuming qad, and that's why a lot of the men there are unwell. It's because of qad. Honestly, it's not to do with qad. It's to do with their already disposition that's quite fragile, and then on top of that they add qad, and then you know, you have a mental illness.
You say that's why they're always shouting across the street and everyone else. It's so chaotic down there. Like, everyone's just shouting, everyone's going mad.
Everyone's
like, you see even the guy that's obviously like in charge of the, let's say, traffic marshal. Yeah. Like, he's off his head too.
It's really,
do you know what I mean? It's so chaotic. Like, how are you telling me a traffic marshal that's meant to be looking after traffic, because not everyone's got like traffic lights, I say, maybe there's one or two, whatever, yeah. But imagine the guy that's a traffic marshal off his head, yeah.
On the job,
he's off his head, yeah. The drivers off their heads, yeah. The people that are watching off their heads. So then you think to yourself, you take a step back, right, and you look at all these people and say, nah, surely not everyone here is just 100%. Do you know what I mean? At this time. And the thing is, I think you mentioned it before, like the drawbacks of the way they cope with it is through qad, let's say, right? Yes, and I've seen it myself where, for example, I don't know if you've seen it, but when the qad truck comes in at Dhuhr, was it Dhuhr times? I think
I've seen videos.
I swear it comes like 8 times a day.
It comes, I don't know how many times they reload it, but let's say it comes at after Dhuhr or before, maybe, yeah. Now it's got a special horn. Yes. Right, it's got this special horn which is like so loud, and I'm hearing and it's trailblazing through the city. Right, I even heard to the point, and this is a story anyways, they said that I think if a kid, and you see these kids that are on top of these trucks, isn't it? They said if a kid drops from the truck or whatever, dies, whatnot, that they pay the compensation, but the truck has to get there on time. Now you're saying that's mad if you really deep it. Now and I remember there was a drought, maybe, like, whatever, and people went nuts, like, because there's a drought.
No, they did.
I think there was a few individual guys, whatnot, they started going to farms and start plucking it. I don't know if you've seen the video. Have you seen it?
I saw it.
Like, they were plucking it and just going off it. But then, like you said before, these are people that are, you know,
so dependent on.
So
And unfortunately, that's how, when people are traumatized, they've been through a lot of pain, they've been through a lot of whatever they've been through, it takes a lot for them to actually not use a vice in some way to alleviate that pain and to deal with it, because to deal with it is too much sometimes. To be conscious of that is too much for some people, for a lot of people actually. So, you know, escapism, essentially, that's what it is. People use qad, others use other means.
Other vice, no, definitely, yeah, no, I agree. Because it is, you do tend to see it everywhere, right? It's a functioning, is the only way they function. When you see it, whether it's a working life, at the night time, you know, for them to just, you know, unwind, I'll say, and just, you know, wherever that might be.
If it made them functional, that would be at least a good thing. Yeah. It doesn't even do that. Like, not qad specifically. There's obviously drugs that people take that they can still function, or, you know, they use it so that they are able to carry out whatever they need to do. But qad specifically doesn't make you any better at doing anything.
Would you not say it makes you productive to a certain extent?
Yeah, I've heard the opposite.
I've seen loads of...
Yeah, like
listen,
truck
from
drivers.
what I've seen, I'm talking about addicts. I'm not talking about the, you know, a regular, I don't know, like once a week. I'm talking about these people that eat qad that every waking moment. And unfortunately, that's a lot of people in the country, because there's a high level of unemployment. There's, you know, they're getting the money sent to their family. They don't need to work, so there's a lot of time on their hands. They're not expected really to do much around the house or help raise kids. Of course, that's changing now, but for a lot of them, waqti bay haystaan, to be quite honest. So what do? They sit there and eat qad all day, and unfortunately when you're doing that all the time, it's going to have adverse effects, because the first thing that it does is it deprives your sleep. And you know, a completely sane, normal functioning person without 3-4 days of sleep can lose their mind quite 100%. Seriously.
No, definitely. So
yeah,
I agree with you on that,
yeah, so I don't really understand the benefit of qad. Maybe someone can tell me. But from what I've seen, because it's used as it's basically abused, I just feel like they just need to do away with it, because you see people that are coming into these hospitals that are recovering and getting better, and, you know, are ready and to face life again, basically, and then they leave and then have a qad relapse. And this isn't what I'm saying. This is what I was hearing from the hospitals that I was going to and speaking to the professionals. That's what they were saying to us. It's that's keeping the problem going. It's maintaining the problem.
The good thing is, well, I think the ban in the UK came about 2014 times, and there was a move away from that. But then there was some kind of void now when it got taken away.
Yes.
So now what you tend to see, well, at that time, qad got taken away. Now there's a void that might need to be filled, whether with different drugs or whatever that might be.
It might need to be.
Do you know what I mean? It did at that time anyways. A lot of people were abusing various different substances at that time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And did you come across any, when it comes to the Somali community, let's say, did you come across any cases of particular, you know, addictions that they might have had?
I think it appears to me it seems like a generational thing. So like, actually, you know what? Then again, it depends on where you are. So if you're back there, then it's usually qad. It doesn't matter from very, very young ages, actually. But here, I think the vices are completely different. And again, they've changed, because I know that there's a lot of young people now that, especially boys, that are doing the whole lean thing. Like, again, I don't know the numbers specifically. I don't know how many people are becoming very unwell with that, but it's a generational thing. I think whatever people are addicted to tends to be around what is going on at that time. What's the hype? What people are consuming at that time. But sorry, I don't even remember.
Yeah, no. Would you say, in terms of, I think you mentioned, but before to us, anyways, was it something like opioids that you came?
Oh, the opioid crisis. Yeah. So like, I think when you mention the fact that when you take something, you obviously need to kind of give them something else so that they don't completely lose their mind. Because obviously, when someone has an addiction, whatever it may be, and then you take that, and it's almost like you make them go cold turkey. You run the risk of actually killing someone if they have an addiction. So with whatever it is, you have to have like a approach whereby you kind of slowly reduce it. Yeah. Or of course, give them something else. And unfortunately, with like drugs, for example, like meth and cocaine and those things, what they would do in the mental health hospitals that I worked at, because these are drug addicts, they would then prescribe them methadone to take as a substitute for whatever they were taking before, which just seemed insane to me, because I was like, you're basically giving them the same drugs, but this one's just prescribed. Because the effects of it is pretty similar, and the way it interacts with the brain is similar. So they'd go, weirdly enough, you'd sign them off, and they'd go to the clinic and get this methadone injection from their doctor. And that just seemed very bizarre to me. I was like, so what are we doing here if we're just trying to replace things with another thing and another thing and another thing? But that's just, that's unfortunately, that's the farm. That's another discussion altogether. But I think we are a culture that just likes to replace one problem with another one and another thing. So that's kind of how it is.
How it is, yeah, definitely. I think what's the more newer things that you tend to see in terms of like could it be perhaps that you said the younger generation tend to be on a whole different scale as to the previous one?
No, not really, actually. I think, again, it is a cultural thing. So whatever's amongst a certain group, that drug would be quite popular. Actually, to be honest, nowadays, I think everyone takes everything. Yeah. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think race or culture has much to do with the kind of drug that they, maybe a little bit, but I think now people are ready or willing to try anything.
But that could be down to your environment, let's just say.
Yeah.
At the same time, or what you basically, what's in front of
Talk
you.
about recreational drugs.
Yeah, we're talking about recreational drugs. Yeah,
definitely.
That's in front of you at that time.
Yeah. I think the people are a lot more willing and open to try anything at least one time, a couple times. But of course, the addiction is really the main thing here. That's the problem.
What kind of other mental health aspects would you say that a lot of maybe Somalis that you come across, maybe young ones? Could it be maybe anxiety? Could it be perhaps, self-harming aspects that you probably come across?
So right now, obviously, I am working as a therapist, and unfortunately, there aren't a lot of, and I say unfortunately because I understand that there's a lot of people, younger generation, whatever, diaspora, that have mental health problems. For a whole host of reasons, and I think we've spoken about this lots of times before, what's kind of contributed to that. But what's happened is that not many of them are actually seeking a lot of help through therapeutic intervention as opposed to medication or as opposed to being taken to a hospital, basically. But unfortunately, it's something that's very specific to Black and minority ethnic groups, or I know some people hate that term, but it's very common with that group to not seek help at an earlier stage, if you know what I mean. So through perhaps therapy, and again, that's because of the lack of opportunities and the barriers and the lack of communication between. There's no bridge, and I think that's what we did that course for, to be the people that bridge that gap between the services and provisions and the people. And again, it is due to the fact that people don't know that these things even exist.
Yeah, definitely.
There isn't enough.
Would you say that a lot of these things are seen as taboo in our communities? And the thing is that I'm aware that nowadays people a bit more open to a lot more things.
I think it's changing
when it comes to the whole mental health aspect of things.
Yeah.
Whereas before they were like, I don't think that exists. Well, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Whereas now, what I'm tend to see is a lot more mothers are able to say to the daughter, for example, if they're seeing she's, a bit distant from the family, they'll be like, you know what? First, I think from what I've seen is they seek out maybe someone that's able to talk to her.
Yeah.
And maybe the second step is probably reaching out to maybe, to see, I'd say, therapy that's probably provided by the NHS or something along those lines. Definitely.
And I think there's a reason for that. What do you think? Why do you think that there are more openness to it? I'm interested to know what your theories are on that.
Yeah, to be honest, it's kind of just got popular. In terms of 10 years ago, nobody was having the conversations. And now I feel like you can catch the conversations anywhere, whether that's online, Twitter, social media, anywhere, literally. So I think there's more of an understanding.
Okay. So you think because there's more of an understanding of mental health, that's why people are more open to seeking out help? Or more open to talking about it? Because others are open to talking about it? Is that what you think?
I think that's what it is. I think another thing was that they didn't want themselves to be seen as, my kid is this.
It's of the norm, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They don't want the communities to look at them a certain way. But because a lot more people are coming out with it, they're a bit more open to these things. Saying, okay, I've heard Hebel and Hebel has happened to them before. I'm not the only one in that side. So they're a lot more open. And this is a thing where I think when it comes to, for example, autism in our communities, for example, a lot of people don't want to say that their kids may be autistic, and they try hide it. But whereas when you start to see a lot more people come out about it, they feel, okay, you know what? Someone's not going to view me in a certain way if I come out with these things. Yeah. I'm not going to be outcasted or some sorts. People are not going to say, oh, this is the person with the crazy kid, for example. Whereas now you're starting to see a lot more sheikhs talk about it. And what is a lot more things are being shared on, they tend to be on Facebook and everything else. A lot more people are, it's been, I think it's a bit more open.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's okay to say that you're not all right. That's what I think it is.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And again, I think it's just a normal. I think we spoke about this earlier. We said it's just a normal that's the normal progression, isn't it? You just
100%.
expect that people are going to get better at understanding and it for it to be less, stigmatized. And I actually think the reason for like this shift almost is because the parents of these young people now are the parents that a lot of them are the ones, first generation Somalis that came here teenage years. They were still able to grasp and understand certain things. So perhaps their perception of mental health is a lot more, I don't want to say advanced, but they do know more about mental health, and they may encourage their kids and actually speak to their kids in a complete different way than perhaps that we did. And have that kind of, give them their children the space to be open about things and to have dialogue with their children. And I think that's what you're seeing. And I'm talking about my cousins, for example, who came here fairly young, had a child, and I see their relationship, and it's nothing like the relationship that I had with my parents. Like, they're so open with each other. They're so, that is encouraged, and it's normalized. So that's why I feel maybe perhaps that's the reason people are able to speak more openly about their things, is because at the end of the day, their parents at home know, so they can then, come out on.
I think it's more easy because they don't want to isolate their kid no more in that sense. Before, it's like, we've got 5 kids, we can shove this one out, and we've still got 4 left. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way they used to view it. But now it's like, we can save this kid too. Yeah, absolutely. In that sense. So it's more of a...
And that it's okay. It's okay to deal with, it's okay to have anxiety, it's okay to have any mental health problem, it's not the end of the world. And it's kind of crazy that I'm talking about the first generation Somali. So our parents were the ones that were born there and came here fairly young and had us. I think there's this cultural thing of like everything you have to hide, everything that's bad, everything that's ill, anything that at the end of the day, illness, it comes from God essentially, isn't it? Like, it's not something that you bring upon yourself unless it's self-inflicted illnesses, which is of course something entirely different. But for mental health, for physical health, whatever it may be, we have this thing where it's just, we always have to hide these things, and I don't understand why, because at the same time we're a culture that preaches Islam and we speak openly about being, Muslims, and for some reason there's not the same energy. It's like, you're saying you're a Muslim, you're saying you believe in Allah, but you're not understanding that this illness is something that comes from God. So why are you hiding it? There needs to be an acceptance to it. This isn't, and I think people perhaps personalize it. They think that, if my child is unwell, if my spouse is unwell, something happens to my family, this is a result of something that I've done. Or this could be a bad, this is like, whatever you did is what happens to your children. And it doesn't actually, no, that's not actually true. This is something that we have completely no control over. So I don't know why I'm going to hide from people that my child is dealing with mental health problems, or that I dealt with mental health problems. But that is a complete different topic, because I actually think there needs to be...
But another thing is, I think as time went on, right, I think a lot of Somali, our parents, let's say, they're reflecting back on those people that they've, grew up with, or family members, and say, you know what, that person that we used to outcast was probably not well, kind of thing. Whereas before they used to just say, no, just get rid of this person, let's not speak on those things. And the thing is, right, some people, whether it's people's family members, had problems with substance abuse before. Yes. Right? Now, what Somalis tend to do when someone has issues with particular substances, they don't like to come with no solutions. Well, their number one solution is to outcast them completely. Yes. And then keep them away from any of their family members. And that way, by pushing that person away, everything's good again. But that's not the case, because that person now is so isolated that they've got no family support. Yes. They've got no one to help them out whatsoever. Yes. Right? Whereas you can come forward and then, put something maybe together, and then take them to, whether it's a particular institution that can help them with whatever drug addiction they've got at that time. But I think it's, like I said, it's slowly changing now. Yeah. You do see a lot of people, like, depending on London, you do see some unwell Somalis, whether, they've got trouble, with particular substances and whatnot. And you think, of course, is when you see another Somali, it's like you see a reflection yourself in that sense.
Yeah, of course.
These are your people.
Yeah,
I don't like to see this
absolutely.
person in a certain way. It's
absolutely.
like I don't know if any of you seen it. Like there's I think it's a mother and a son, two homeless people, and I think it's in Tooting or something. And now a lot of people always heartbroken about the whole situation. I don't know fully about the whole situation, anyways, but it's like a lot of people been trying to help them and whatnot, but they don't want no help. So this could be tied down to probably some mental health aspects or whatnot. But the way I look at it is that as a community, of course, and you know, we looked at it. I don't think everyone's seen. Sorry, everything's not seen as taboo now.
Yeah.
It's slowly changing, I think,
Yeah,
and a lot of people become more accepting. I say.
Is there anything you'd like kind of recommend like as early steps or for people to do if anybody kind of relates to this, like in terms of they're going through something? Is there anything you'd recommend in terms of like, I don't know, whether it's speak to somebody or like, is there anything you'd recommend?
Yeah, definitely. I think generally speaking, to always try and educate yourself and learn about these things. So, you know, and what you can do in your own capacity, I guess, is try, well, it depends again what kind of, if you're feeling too anxious and too depressed, I think that's a completely different other process that you have to go through. But for the most part, I think educating yourself about these things is always a good idea, because that gives you an idea as to how you can then deal with the problem. So also, of course, trying to seek support, trying to get some therapy if you can. So there's like IAPT services that you can refer yourself to do some like cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, depending on again what your mental health problem may be. But I think if you don't have anybody to speak to, that's where the real difficult, or they feel like they can't. But I feel if you have someone that you trust, and a friend or someone that you can rely on, it's always a good thing to try and speak openly about these things, because it always feels better when you speak about it, because a lot of the times people just want to suppress it and don't want to think about it. But honestly, it doesn't do anything. It just oftentimes makes you feel worse. But if you do have someone that you can trust and rely on, a family member, a loved one, I would say try and be open with them about that, because I feel like once you relieve that feeling, you would feel a bit better. But of course, there's numerous ways depending on your issues, where you can go to seek help. But take action immediately, always, as soon as you understand. Actually, you know what? A really useful bit of information I can say is when you are feeling. I think depression, anxiety is probably the most common, and they usually they're comorbid, so they often come together a lot of the times. One is often more predominant than the other one, so but they usually come together. And I would say people have a tendency when they feel quite low to start to become quite withdrawn and isolated, which is again just a symptom of the low mood. But I always encourage people that come to me to try and remain and trying to maintain that routine that you had before. Whatever it is that you're doing, try and stick to that and try your best not to begin to isolate and begin to kind of cut away from your responsibility and your routine, and just, you know, fight the temptation to really just stay in bed, for example, all day long and just, I don't know, scroll on social media, because all that does is just... it makes the problem worse, and actually it brings your anxiety back up, because the more you spend lying down and wanting to not deal with anything, the worse the problem gets quite. So although, again, the problem with that is people, when you're depressed, you lose interest in things, even things that used to give you enjoyment before, just simply doesn't do it anymore. But what we say is go with the plan, not the mood. Stick to the plan, not the mood.
Definitely. Some
Try
great
and
takeaways.
do,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Everyone tends to have, you know, a little, I'd say,
Down
small, down days,
course.
small spells.
Yeah.
This could be, you know, in your early 20s, teens, whatever, late
Anytime,
20s, anytime really. You know, that little gap that you tend to have where you're not doing much, you might not be employed at that point, and then you've got a little down period. But then it's totally normal at that point to have them.
That's the thing. I think that's an important thing that you said, actually. It's normal. And I think it's so sorry. It's probably one of the most important things I haven't even actually said, is that to try and be forgiving of yourself and be kind to yourself. And I know that sounds really cliche, and probably a lot of people say be kind to yourself. And I don't mean it in a consumerism way, like go and buy some things, go on retail therapy. No, I'm saying be kind to yourself in the sense that understand that this is temporary. Most times that you go through anxiety, depression, it's for the majority of people rather, it's episodal. It goes, it's a journey, right? So you go through these moments and then you come out of it, and then you may go through it later on in life. But you have to remember that this is something that you're going to come out of. This isn't, and it's so hard to believe that when you feel like that. It's so hard to see that light, or to feel like actually this is going to get better. But you have to understand that it is going to get better. You are going to be okay. This is completely fine given the circumstances that you're in. It's okay to not be okay. I think you already said that. But just kind of remind yourself, this is temporary. I'm all right. I feel like this at the moment, but I'm going to get better and I'm going to get out of this. So just having that mind frame, because I feel like it's very, very, very powerful what you tell yourself, you know.
No, that's one thing I can agree on that side, because we tend to be tough on ourselves.
Oh man,
men, Somalis, we're like, no, I can't. I have to be, you know, I can't have those down days. But really, truly, it's just being normal, really.
100%.
We
it's just
can't.
normal.
Yeah.
You're not always just gonna be great. It's never going to be that. You're going to have some, you know, down days, some, you know, things that you come across that you be like, oh, you know what, I can't hack this at this point, but I'll come back to this and hopefully, you know, get through this.
Yeah.
You know, and just by, like you said, just having the mindset and keeping to the routine.
Just not beat yourself up over it. And honestly, like I feel like people are harsher to themselves than they are to other people. And I always ask, like my clients, for example, I'd always say, how would you speak to somebody that's going through what you're going through now? You know, you're compassionate towards them, you're accommodating, you say nice things to them, you know, but you're not doing that for yourself. So the same way that you would speak to someone else in a very sensitive situation like that, treat yourself in the same way.
No, definitely.
Because otherwise, what's the alternative that that you give yourself a hard time, but that doesn't do anything at all.
But would you say, another point I wanted to bring this up with you was that having more Somalis in your industry, would it be a better thing having that representation? Would it help more of having Somalis come forward with things, or would you feel that makes it a bit more reluctant in that side?
I think it's always a good thing. Definitely, representation is always important. And I think it would, like, for example, when I was working in the mental health hospitals and I would see Somali boys, girls coming in, and their parents, the minute they saw me, they were like, oh, you can see the relief on their face because they have someone that understands them. And, you know, obviously, maybe because they're obviously obviously because they are Somali, like I would I try like support them, because I know that they don't know what's going on. No one's bothered to explain anything to them, so I'll take it upon myself to be the kind of middle person. But they would always come to me and be like, how's my son or how's my daughter doing, you know, can you make sure they do this, can you make sure they do that? Like I'd have moms saying, can you make sure Salati Saatu, because I'm like, I'm not really I can't go to their dorms and be like, like I really can't do that. So bless them. But of course it does help, because then I was able to tell them things that they had never heard from the other, you know, from the other professionals, or it was of course, like it's very important, I think. Yeah, definitely.
No, I'm just taking a second to literally take it in. I've been on mute, just listening.
A lot going on.
I've just been on mute, literally enjoying the conversation.
No, definitely.
I've been waffling so much.
No, not at all.
It's one of those ones where you go in. It's a good breakdown, I'd say, where everyone's probably had their own journey, I'd say, and they can reflect on this. Where everyone has had those down days,
100%.
and it's all about getting yourself back up And having those spells, and I agree with you, you know, it's withdrawal from everyone. You know, when you withdraw yourself from and you're in your little
you go
bubble,
to that deep
and
dark hole.
exactly, not
And then it's hard
wanting
to
to
come
come up from bed or anything, and you're just
Yes.
on your phone the whole time, and
Yes.
you want to just sleep all the time. And these are all the things where, like I said, if you've got like friends, close ones, you know, when they look for these signs and, you know, and they take you away from that and just, you know, say, hey, by the way, is everything good? Or, you know, I'd say the best thing in terms of support is, you know, looking at them. Maybe they need a job or anything, help them out with applications in that sense. Or, you know, look at basically what they wanted to do. You know, look at the positive side of things, whether it's bad making them reflect on it, on why they're at that state.
That was a popular slogan. Like I used to hear like pretty recently about like check up on your friends. Like I used to see that everywhere.
No, I agree
Like
with
online,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. It's always a good thing.
I think although a lot of people say that, I don't believe a lot of people know how to actually deal when their friend comes to them.
Isn't it difficult though? Like to
It's extremely difficult, and I think a lot of people struggle with that. So if someone were to disclose something that's, you know, I think I'm depressed, or I think I feel like this, I don't know why, you would be surprised the amount of people that just don't know what to say or what to do. They just feel so awkward. And I think the main thing to remember is that you don't need to have the answers. You know, most of the time they're not telling you for some kind of, you know, answer to their problems. Try your best to refrain from providing them with answers and just listen. That's all you need to do. And so that's what we do in therapy. All we do is listen to them. And honestly, it's quite helpful to just have someone that's going to be there. I'm not necessarily listening, like looking at your phone. No. I'm talking about active listening, actually really listening to that person and giving them the time and the space, and not trying and fight that temptation to be, what about this? What about that? Have you tried this? Because that's what happens, isn't it? When you're having that interaction, you can see the other person just thinking, what do I say to them now? And it's just like, you don't need to say anything. You just literally need to listen to what they're saying. And then when that awkward silence comes in the end, just bear it.
Yeah, no, you got to bear it. Yeah,
just it's okay. Like, you just be like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm really, you know, and empathize with them. I'm sure, like, it sounds like a lot, man. Don't try and, but then what about this? And then what about that? But then have you seen that? Like, don't.
But do you think everybody's capable of that in terms of just like
listening?
Yeah, just listening. Because if you think of it, like you could be listening to, I don't know, maybe something very traumatic. Like, don't you think that kind of takes a toll on the listener? Like, imagine you become the go-to person for just to vent to.
Yeah, definitely. But then that shouldn't, I mean, of course, that shouldn't be the case. I think you're responsible from both sides. So the person that's disclosing this, of course, like, I don't know about you, but I don't think I would, if I had something that's really quite heavy, I'll just go and drop a bomb like that, you know. I think it depends on the way you communicate that information. And also, of course, it's really sticky when you're there and you're listening to them and then they come back to you because they found you to be of comfort to them last time. Because I know that's another thing. And nodding, is that someone that's coming back to you all the time. It's peak. But honestly, I find a great deal of comfort in just trying in not, because I used to be that person. Like, what do I say? What do I do? I always used to feel that. And even now when I'm doing the therapy, it's like someone will say something and I just be like, should I just provide you a solution? Actually, no, I'm gonna listen, and it works, because I believe, you know, by telling people or instructing people or advising people, it doesn't work.
But do you think those people that tend to be in those kind of situations at that particular time, they tend to overthink the situation? They become the overthinkers, and they think, if I'm telling this person all these things, right, what's he gonna think of me? How is he gonna go? What's the relationship gonna be like after this? Is this person gonna view me in a particular way? And it's just this whole thing of, you know what, I might as well not. Do you know what I mean? So then it becomes
that's not
problematic.
your burden as a listener to think about how will they perceive how I'm perceiving them. That's not your job. If they've come to you and they've already disclosed this thing, it's up to you how you respond to it. But if that person decides not to open their mouth because they're worried that they're going to be perceived this or that or the other, that's really their own thing. That's up to them. But I think when someone, say for example, I was to come to you and speak to you about something that I was struggling with, and you just sit there and you listen to me and you're like, yeah, man, I'm really sorry, that sounds so tough, like, what are you going to do about that? Say if you were to do that, the chances are that I'm going to come back to you and then probably tell you something else. When someone faces another person that's like, have you tried that? But what about this thing? Have you decided, like, always try and provide solutions. They'll be like, you don't understand. You don't get it.
Sometimes it's not the solutions that they may be looking for. Maybe sometimes they're looking for...
Even if they are looking for solutions, don't give it.
Don't give it. Yeah, no.
Don't give it.
I got another situation. What about, like, if you sense something is wrong with a friend, yeah? Like they're being different and whatnot, and you have a suspicion that they're going through something. It could be, I don't know, depression or something like that.
Yeah.
What would you like suggest in a situation like that?
No, I'm joking. No, of course I wouldn't ignore it. No. No, I don't ignore it, but I wait for them to say to me what's what. Unless, like, of course, like.
But if they never come, like they never come around to it.
Again, I think it's difficult to say, because the kind of friends that I have, they're the kind that are like, I'll come to you when I'm ready type of thing. Yeah, and I know that. And I'm like, yo, you're going through something, but, I'm here, and they know that, and then they will. But if they need a bit of a push, then, of course, it's always worth being like, yeah, I haven't seen you, you're not yourself. What's going on,
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Recognize the changes in them, and definitely speak to them and be open about it and make them feel comfortable enough to tell you. But if they don't want to, again, I would say don't push it, honestly.
No, it makes sense.
But actually, funnily enough, like, one thing I learnt was, I used to think prior to me doing this course that everybody should do therapy. I was like, I think everyone needs therapy. I think everyone needs a place to speak and discuss and explore. And, it always sounds like a good idea, right? But I actually learned, I think, very early on when I was there, and I spoke to one of the lead psychotherapists that was there, and he came and introduced himself, and he was like, what is about your journey? And I was telling him, and I was just like, yeah, I just think everyone needs that. I think everybody at some point has been traumatized. I just feel like everybody needs somebody to speak to. Everyone needs therapy.
No, I've been in there. Even though someone's not going through nothing, but they still go and have some therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe everyone needs that.
Yeah.
But sometimes the issue is that everyone looks at are they able to have access to these kind of, if they don't have the maybe disposable income.
I just completely scratched.
If they don't have the disposable income, let's say.
Yeah.
Well, if the free services, take time for you even to get into these particular slots, it becomes really problematic.
Yes.
So no, definitely. If you are capable and you got some of those disposable incomes, it's always good to probably, I'll say, get some therapy.
If you can. But I think the thing is like, therapy isn't also for everyone. That's what I learned, because, like I said to him, I think everyone needs therapy. I think everyone should have. And he was like, actually, no. I was like, damn, what? And he's like, actually, no, it doesn't work for everyone. Some people actually you basically unravel a bunch of stuff that they really wasn't trying to deal with, that you've brought to the surface because you decided that everyone need. He was like, actually, no, therapy isn't for everyone. So exploration,
really
it can be really problematic. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe some things are better dealt with yourself. I don't know, but that's kind of that was interesting. I was like, okay, so I guess not everyone maybe feel re-traumatized by even speaking about it, for example.
No, just want to say, of course, thank you very much for, coming down today. Really appreciate it.
Do appreciate
it. These are some of the things that we've really, it's more of a new thing in terms of, being open within our communities.
Yeah. And having, at least we're trying to have the conversations, on a public platform.
Rather than just putting them aside. But at the same time, we're discussing whether, particular substance abuse, what kind of interventions you probably could have, how particular, is our culture really open to these kind of things, or are we starting to become more open to these things? So, no, definitely, really appreciative to that.
Yeah, culturally, I think we are more open to these things. And I would say beyond culture and beyond everything is to try, because, we are very, very underfunded working for the NHS. Just generally now, most like more than we've ever been in terms of the funding that we get for therapy. And so not everybody can get the help that they need. It's not accessible. And a lot of these people are what we call on a conveyor belt. They just go from one thing and then there's a little bit of a pass in the buck a little bit. And especially people that are dealing with complex trauma, it's very, very difficult for them to seek help because it's firstly extremely long waiting times, and it's not sometimes long enough for them to even be able to process this. So I say that to say to try your best to equip yourself with knowledge and to be proactive in acquiring knowledge and actually feeling. I'm a huge advocate for the self. I feel like we are so much more, we have so much more control and power than we actually believe that we do. We have the power to transform, our lives, honestly, and to bring ourselves out of mental trauma. And of course, you need support, but ultimately, I think people don't believe that they're not equipped. They don't know where to start. Therefore, I have to depend on this and that institute and these people and that people to kind of inform me and tell me. But actually, it's surprising how much you can do for yourself with what's out there, and to believe that it's possible that you can actually change your life around, and you have the power to do that, because it's unbelievable some of the things that I've seen. It's really.
No, we really appreciate the advice, that's given and everything. And we thought having you on was gonna be was actually, that's why we said special guest for a reason, because having these insights is really beneficial, especially for our communities. Things to look out for, like I said, being proactive, especially doing a deep dive within yourself and look at definitely reflection and everything else,
self-reflection.
Definitely, and
spend time.
And whilst we've listened to this, we've taken our own
mental notes.
100%. I agree. 100%. It's one of those ones where whilst you're talking whatnot, we're doing our self-reflection. Oh, you know what, you're actually right, this is the way, and just all those other things. So I really appreciate that. So is there anything else you want to add, or
self-reflection? Oh man, Sam knows about this one. It's so important. It's so important for us to self-reflect and actually spend time getting to know ourselves and know who we are, what we want, reflect on our actions, the choices that we make. Just spend time with yourself. Honestly, a lot of people find it difficult to just sit there and be with themselves, to even know what's going on in their mind, to even process what's happening. And we always say, like, I'm talking about we as in therapists, to check in with yourself, to understand how you're feeling, just sit with yourself and be like, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking about right now? What am I processing? How is this making me feel? This is that process of understanding yourself. If you understand yourself, you understand what triggers you. You understand what is good for you, what isn't good for you, what you should try and avoid, what may bring up mental health problems for you, what may trigger you. But you can't help yourself if you don't even know what's going on.
Because essentially you're kind of lying to yourself then, isn't it? If you know, I'd say the best thing is,
I don't think a lot of people know themselves.
They don't.
Yeah,
not
I was just about to say.
They don't know how their brain works. They don't know. They don't.
I don't.
They just see themselves in a hot mess, and they're 100%. Like, "How did I get here?"
They don't know where to start. Like the way I look at it is like, I don't think it's very difficult to get to that point where you can sit in a room and just or do something alone, innit? Like me, I'll give you something that I do alone. I go to the cinema and I've got a subscription. What I like to do is just go to the cinema by myself and just watch a film. And that's a way of therapy for me. So it works for me because that's what works for me. But I don't think a lot of people are capable of doing things by themselves.
But I do the same thing, to be honest. I go.
Yeah, but I'm saying the majority.
Yeah,
I don't think they know themselves.
I go maybe might go somewhere in Central, wherever, somewhere anyways. I go to eat on my own and just sit there, do you know what I mean? And it's just my own time where I do my own self-reflection, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where you get to know yourself a bit more.
Yeah, but most
I
people are
mean-
not comfortable with that. Like
Yeah.
I don't believe that they could do
No,
that.
do you know what? Like the thing is, there's two different things going on here. So there's people that can go out by themselves, go watch a film by themselves, go and eat by themselves, but they don't even. There's no connection between what's going on here and like what's going on in themselves. Like they don't know what they're thinking, they don't know what they're feeling. They just are on autopilot.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I feel like we are always on autopilot.
Right.
We rarely know what's going on in our minds and how this is impacting the way that we feel, because all these things are interconnected. So what you would find is that people find themselves in huge mental distress. They find themselves in stress and depression and anxiety, and they're so far deep in, and then they come to you and they're like, I don't know what happened. I don't know how this happened. I never used to be like this. Why am I feeling like this? And I'm like, there was like a whole process. This was a gradual process. This happened overnight. This was something that took a while.
Together,
But
yeah.
you didn't realize because you never, ever checked in with yourself. You never even sat down and said, hold on a minute. Am I doing too much? Is something wrong with what I'm... Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there was not a single point
Yeah,
that you actually decided, yo, what's going on here?
Yeah.
What am I thinking about?
yeah.
And so we ended up in crises because we've spent no
But
time...
could that be that they're thinking maybe a bit too much and there's a lot going on, so that's why
that
they
as
put
well.
themselves in an autopilot?
Of course. There is that much, honestly. And people put themselves in auto. And you're right, actually. People that overthink, for example, will say, I make myself distracted and busy myself with things so that I don't have to overthink. That's their coping mechanism to put themselves on autopilot. Because they cannot just sit, and even if they think, it's always extreme. It's the overthinking. So it's about finding, the balance. But before you even get there, I would say always take the time for yourself. And honestly, I know we're on YouTube and all plugged in at the moment, but try your best to stay away from being overstimulated, because this isn't normal. Like, being plugged in this much is not normal. This is something that is very, very new. We still don't understand the long-term effects of this, So, I feel like the reason why a lot of people are feeling anxious, they're irritable, they can't sit for long, they're restless, they're anxious. I already said that, but the reason they're feeling all of this is because we're so plugged in and overstimulated from all corners.
Yeah.
So take the time, try and stay away from screens and everything. Try and do things one at a time, and just allow your body to actually catch up with what your mind is doing. Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end it. If there's nothing more to say, like you summarized a lot there.
Yeah, a lot, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah, no, really. And again, I know I've said this before, but I really appreciate you having you
Thank
on
you
here.
very much for
No,
coming.
thank you. No, I really
That's
appreciate
okay.
it.
Oh my God.
No, it's been great, honestly. Loved it. Yeah.
I feel like I've been in a session right now.
Yeah, that's how I felt like too. Like, there's a whole session going on. We're both being, diagnosed, I'd say. We're listening in. Okay, well, it could be me, Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh my
And,
God.
I need to start doing this. Yeah, no, but it's literally,
Yeah.
like you said, checking in with yourself is so important. So hopefully everyone does that. Some of the gems take away from.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so take away, Lee.
Yeah,
Do your
so
thing.
like, share, subscribe, and just stay tuned and locked in for the next episode. So yeah, it's a wrap.
Cool.